Isn't it interesting that we are experiencing as a culture so much darkness, and yet in that darkness, at least for me, it seems as though God will provide sources of life, little glimpses of hope, glimpses of life, of love, and typically through human beings, whom I presume God is using to bring that. You know, this is something that we really are a gift to each other, you might say, in a lot of ways, and very subtle and small ways, and sometimes larger ways. And I thought I would make this video as a belated tribute to International Women. Woohoo! Because I guess every woman is international, technically, because you're from some kind of nation. But there's so much that can be said here about this. We've heard a lot about women and what is a woman and all this. I don't want to get into the details of that, but I thought I would just kind of throw out my own thoughts as to what it is that a woman brings, what women do, what they bring to us. And if you think about it, it's quite remarkable. If you go back to the story of Adam and Eve in the beginning, you have the story of Eve, who is named after the fall. Actually, she receives her name after the fall. It's Chava in Hebrew, or Eve, we would say. I don't know where we get Eve from Chava, but there's this idea of, within the name of breathing and the idea of life, that she is that which brings life into the world, the one that brings life. And as we all know, it's not just biological life. We're not far more than that. It's not just, okay, you have been like an animal thing where it's just, you have been dumped onto the earth and congratulations, and now I'll take care of you, but you're going to be more or less on your own. Now, there is a quality of life that a mother brings, even unconsciously, without even trying. We start out in life being carried, whether we're carried in the womb, we are, and then after birth, of course. And the mothers will shield us from the excesses of the world, right? The violence, all the terrible things, all the dangers, the excessive heat and light from water that we're not ready for. We are prepared in that, ultimately, and in that process, prepared to endure the vale of tears, you might say, that life is. But if you think about it, and I get this from, I forget her name. It was on Glenn Scrivener's channel. I should have written it down. This wonderful lady that talks about philosophy, making philosophy accessible, but she made a comment about knowledge. And she said that true knowledge and the knowledge that we receive in the very beginning is a face. It's the face of the mother. So knowledge is not so much an intellectual thing, although we, of course, obviously we develop intellectually, but there's a very basic intuitive knowledge that is provided by the mother. And I would say, there's spiritual parallels to this, that it is just simply what that face communicates to us or communicates to the child is just beyond words. And without that, the child has no real grounding, but with it, the woman becomes, and the mother becomes their true north. For better or for worse. Sometimes they don't want to be the true north. But it's almost like they're like the sun. A woman is like the sun in the sense of light. Okay, I'm not saying women should be worshipped or anything like that. I'm not saying the sun should be worshipped either. But it's an analogy. It's just saying that the sun, what does the sun do? It reaches through the darkness, wakes us up, right? It brings us to life. It It awakens us to the realities of life and to beauty. And without that light, we would not be able to behold beauty. And it's almost like it's hardwired into women. They can't, whether they have children or not. It's women just bring life into the world. It's just what they do. Now you might say, okay, well, I have known some really crazy women or whatever, and they or bad mothers or whatever it is. And I get that. I understand. And there's bad fathers too. There's a lot of brokenness in the world for sure. But what I'm saying is that even with that, there is a core in every woman that really, it's like a broken stained glass window where you have all the fragments on the ground and there's no apparent rhyme or reason to it, but there is beauty there. And you might see some of the pieces have been reassembled or not, but the light might catch one or two of the pieces and you begin to see the beauty, catch a glimpse of the beauty that is being brought forth. And it is, it brings life. That beauty brings life, you might say. As Dostoevsky says, beauty will save the world. That's not to diminish the spiritual aspect. I'm just saying that Christ gives us, that is the gift that women are given, which in turn they give to the world. And it's something that is, it's just quite, there's just no words. It's without it, I don't think we would have a very, very desolate existence. There are many things in Christianity we talk about, the life-giving cross, the life-giving spirit. Christ talks about, the way, the truth, and the life. He is the life. He is the ultimate source of life. But we need that. We need that as human beings. It's not enough to kind of gut it out in our animal existence. We need life. And the life is far more than just biological life, and it's far more than even emotional vibrancy. It is something, again, a quality probably beyond definition. There's a deep mystery to it. We are mysterious as human beings, as God is mysterious as well. So I thought I would read a poem by Henry Gibson. No, but this is something I wrote to my mother on the 10-year anniversary of her demise. She died in 2012, and I wrote this in 2022. As you may not have known you were catching me, or that I was falling from my soft heaven. Once fallen, breathing new air in a new and foreign world, you were my sun, shining and singing me awake. In you, I was still hidden, yet fully known. You were an unwitting minister of God, carrying me above the waves, above the hard earth, filtering the brilliance of the sun by day, warming and guiding me through my dark nights. You remembered me when I was forgotten, and when I was shattered, helped me find my forgotten self when I had long ago ceased looking. Most of all, you taught me beauty and to see the stars beyond the darkness. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. May your memory be eternal. So in that, I'm sort of hinting at something. If you can probably tell the idea of birth, because that's obviously where it begins. That's where everything begins. But this idea of birth, I could be wrong on this, but I see natural, like childbirth, as sort of a recapitulation of the fall, in the sense that, if you think about it, Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden. They are in a more or less pristine environment. They are fully hidden and yet fully revealed in God. It talks about that they are naked and not ashamed. They are fully seen by God and yet hidden away and obscured in some way. And that is a sort of, I think, a hint at them being wrapped in the glory of God and clothed in the glory of God. And this is a tradition. There's a Jewish oral tradition, and it got carried into Christianity, and it goes all the way back. There is a pseudepigraphal book called the First Book of Adam and excuse me, Adam and Eve that talks about this, and it's not canonical, but it gives you a window into how they thought, and basically it's describing Adam and Eve and their life after the fall, what they went through, what they endured, and not only that, but the nature of the fall, including this idea of having the glory just sort of stripped away from them. So there is this idea of their sort of in a sort of autonomous spirit capturing this fruit, this thing that they were not supposed to get a hold of and to consume. And there's an implication of this idea that they're turning to a different source of life, that instead of drawing their life from God, they now turn to this thing as being sort of a shortcut to life, is the way that it's portrayed. And there's also this sense in which Adam and Eve, there's like this idea of this is mine. It's kind of like you're stealing it almost, this grasping after something that you're not supposed to grasp. And so in that, they lost the glory of God, and there's a sense in which they sort of fell to the earth, as in the beginning, they were sort of between heaven and earth, mediating heaven and earth. And we see that even in ourselves, and the fact that we're the only, say, vertical being, on the planet, that we implicitly, symbolically connect heaven and earth. That's why we were created. That's one of the reasons, is to bring the life of God into the earth, to be that mediatorial being that does that. And obviously that went sideways. And so then Adam is cast to the earth, Adam and Eve, and they are thrown back on their own resources. They have to now fend for themselves and all the rest. But they're in a new world now, and they're breathing a different atmosphere. Now they're having to deal with diurnal cycles. Even that was even foreign, at least according to the early, oral tradition, and then the story that I was talking about. And granted, it's not biblical. I understand all that, but it's just interesting. I think they're basically, and then God helps them in that process, and He sends angels, and there's a lot to it. But basically, the idea being that in childbirth or in the birth process, you have a similar thing. A child in the womb is like in a faux heaven kind of thing. There are things that he carries within him, he or she, organs and different things that don't make a lot of sense. And because they're created for another world, in anticipation of another world. So when you are born, you are suddenly cast into this world where you are breathing a new atmosphere. You are hearing sounds that you were vaguely aware of before, but now you're really hearing it. And this loud, crazy thing. And it's a shock, obviously, and that's why babies cry. But what is the first thing that you see? The face of the mother. And that is the grace. The face is the grace. Hey, there you go. I should have made that the title. The face is the grace. And in the vale of tears, you are, and in this crazy new world in which the child finds themselves, and now they're already dying, right? Time has now, for them, is a living reality. They're no longer in a semi-timeless state. And now the clock is ticking, but they have the family. They have first the mother and then the family by extension. And their world gradually expands, and they're prepared for this world, ideally. And this is all ideal and aspirational, but that's the idea. So when Jesus talks about being born again, he talks about being born again and born from above. He uses a kind of a Greek euphemism. It means both. So you're born again from above, maybe you could say. And it's the inversion of this. So you are born from above. Well, what does that mean? You're born into above. You're born into heaven. If you're born into heaven, well, then you're breathing a new atmosphere, a heavenly atmosphere. You have senses that are now awakened, say spiritual senses. You are aware of spiritual things. But the first thing you see is the face of your Father. You see the face of your Father, and you see the face of Christ. You are brought into the love of God and into the fellowship of the saints and of the Trinity. Really, you enter into the life of the Trinity. And it's something you don't hear a lot about. You'll hear references to it, maybe in some charismatic circles, but God, unfortunately, very often the glory of God is sort of seen instrumentally, or as kind of a, it's like, oh, how to use the glory of God to get your breakthrough or whatever. So you got to be careful with that stuff. But anyway, this is a side note. This is all just, this is what I was trying to convey in this poem, is that mothers fulfill this role in a way that, yes, it is painful to be born. It is difficult to live in this world, but mothers act as a sort of buffer. They are the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud, you might say, in a certain sense. Obviously, God is the ultimate version of that, but still mothers are given as a grace to us. And so that's about it. Just wanted to say that, and thank you, women, for bringing us to life. Thank you for your beauty. Thank you for everything. And with that, I will sign off, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.